Hey there guys, in this video we're going to be going to get another rank 1 clear on the Shogun of Unknown Origin. So we're going to turn on all modifiers, and in this clear, compared to my previous one, we're going to be dropping Warrior's Prayer DFina as well as the old Ibara. So we're going to be taking Ayaka and Lunar Cleome as the replacements. Now, I have gotten a lot of requests to, show a clear that doesn't use, like, Melissa or Lilith. I have to say that after trying a few different ideas, it feels like Melissa is very important. Now, I'm sure it's doable without her, but I don't have the new Ibara, and doing it without either Melissa or the new Ibara seems pretty challenging. Maybe people figure out a way to do it without either of them, but that's going to be pretty hard to do. And as far as Lilith goes, once again, I don't have the new Ibara. Even my old Ibara is not EX3. So there's very few DPS that can actually help you in this fight, because humans get huge penalties, physical units get huge penalties, so you need like a non-human either mage or a defense or spirit scaling unit, and there's extremely few options for that. So you've got the new Ibara, the old Ibara, and Lilith. That's mostly it. I tried out Regina, and Regina is just too clunky for this kind of Clash of Wills. Like, she can burst really hard once, and then her follow-up bursts are like horrible. So Regina does not really, at least I couldn't figure out a way to make her help me win phase 2 quickly. Yeah, so anyway, we're going to be, like I said, we're dropping DFina, we're dropping Ibara, and we're going to go with this party. So so maybe this will help those of you that just don't have, like, Warrior's Prayer DFina or something. Anyway, so for the ambush, the boss healing imperils you, etc., no big deal. So we're going to use Olive for the first few turns to just, again, fill the morale gauge by doing her break stuff, and then a giant melon. Lilith, well, we'll come back to her. Let's have Melissa do shared immunity, chronic flow, and parasol shield. Abigail will do cover, contingency, same as the previous clear. Cover, contingency, and Shelga. We're going to have Ayaka do both her cooldowns, Holiday Song, and then just Carol of Frosty Snow. Lunar Cleome is going to use, we're going to use Slayer's Symphony for the Demon Killer, Prodigious Protection for the morale gain, and then just a Gallant Crescendo is fine, doesn't matter. Don't use her other fire stuff. Lilith is going to do Unstable Corruption for the Dark Amp, and then Double Rapture to heal up our tank, because we did get some gravity damage. Okay, turn 1 is some non-elemental magic. Abigail covers it no problem. And the boss gains 99% mitigation for 2 turns. Okay, on turn 2, we're going to just reload Olive and have her do her thing again. We're going to do the LB of Ayaka. Abigail will cast cover again, and then just anti-magic and physical. Let's see, Lilith can do Betrayal and Double Rapture to heal. Cleome can do her Shifted LB to put up the mod boost. And Melissa can do Abyssal Blessing for, for the Dark Amp, as well as Human Killer on Lilith. And Minutes of Might. That will be a LB damage buff for later. Okay. Turn 2 is, again, some magic damage, including the Execution Order, which deals decent damage if you have a, older tank. With the newer tank like Abigail, it's fine. Okay, so on turn 3, we're going to go ahead and use Ayaka's Mod Boost, SLB. We're going to use Abigail's Weapon Imperil SLB. We're going to use Melissa to put up Uncontrollable Darkness. This is going to be a physical damage turn, and we need to absorb it. So Uncontrollable Darkness, Human Killer on Ayaka, and then any killer on anyone just for the morale game. Lilith can just reload, so can Olive. And then Cleome, in this order, as the last action, is going to Blood Red, Gallant Crescendo, and Scarlet Sharp Note to get her big 150 amplify for next turn. We're going to do the big burst of Cleome next round. Okay. As you see, the boss deals crazy physical damage, but we're absorbing it with Melissa, which is one of the reasons she's such a big deal on this fight. Now we're going to do our burst damage. Okay, so give me 1 second. We're going to use, after all the auto, a lot of auto casting here. So we're going to use Melissa as the first action to put up Human Killer on Cleome, big Human Killer. We're going to do shared immunity, and then just any killer, it doesn't matter, just to fill the morale gauge a little bit more. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and use our morale bar buffs. We'll do the defense one and the attack and magic one. If your morale gauge is not at 180, don't worry about the attack and magic when you have a slightly lower buff. But now we're going to do the burst. We're going to SLB these 2 units. We're going to have Cleome go to the base form and SLB. We're going to have Ayaka use her Magnus as well. We're using all the big Magnuses in this phase 1. And then Abigail is going to use a vision card to chain with Ayaka. And we're going to go ahead and chain this up. So we need to deal more than 2.5 billion because this is the only turn we can do the damage cap. So we have to do 2.5 billion or better. But we got to do less than 2.85 billion because we don't want to push the threshold. So we need to do above 2.5, below 2.8. So play with it. Check your variance. If you're dealing too much damage, maybe break the chain slightly or something. We did too much damage. Oh my god, 3 billion. So... Okay, so... I'm going to rerun that fight again, and we're just going to go it again. That was a really high variance roll. We're going to come back, and I'll come back to the exact same turn, and we'll resume when we don't accidentally push that threshold. See you in a second on turn 4 again. Alright guys, I've rerun the fight again. As we know, I'm currently dealing too much damage on turn 4, so I'm going to be doing slightly less optimal stuff on turn 4. So, we are not going to use the morale buffs from the morale gauge, and we're not going to use killers on this turn from Melissa. This is going to help us deal less damage so that we deal the 2.5 billion damage cap, but we don't push the threshold on turn 4. So let's go ahead and rerun this turn. So again, the SLB of Lilith and Olive, the base form LB of Cleome, Ayaka will Magnus, and then we will Vision Card chain with you. And we're going to just wait on Melissa. So let's go ahead and chain this up. And again, if you're dealing on my turn chart, I'll have the best way to do the turn. Okay, so there we go. So by not using killers and not using the morale gauge stuff, we still almost pushed the threshold. But so we're good. So and again, and if I was still... If your team is just geared way better than mine, and if you're still dealing way too much damage on turn 4, then, do things like skip a mod buff for Cleome, on an earlier turn, or have Olive not use her focus on the previous turn, stuff like that. Just do something to deal less damage on turn 4. But, as you see, we're comfortably over-pushing turn 4, so we're good. Anyway, so at this point, Melissa can, after the turn is done, we can just do, we'll do the same thing that the turn chart said. We'll just do it, after the burst. Okay. So there we go. So we did 2.5 or better. I know we did 2.83. 2.85 is the too far mark, but 2.83 is okay. So there it is. Damage cap done, chain count, or chain score is done. Okay, now we're going to push the rest of the way. So we're going to go ahead and triple Betrayal with Lilith. We're going to have Olive do her stuff. Actually, Olive is going to... Let's have Olive do both of this. Let's do a Gunner, a Melon, and a Dual Summer Shot. Let's have Cleome go back to the shift form, and we'll triple Bolting. Let's have Ayaka quad Frosty. Let's have you put up cover again, and then the mitigation stuff. And Melissa on this turn is going to Human Killer on Ayaka, as well as we need to do all consuming, so all consuming darkness, and then just a shared immunity. Okay, and now I already know that we're going to easily push it, but again, if you're little bit concerned, you can use the attack and magic buffs. I'm going to go ahead and click Olive. Wait just a moment because she's very slow. Click the rest. And there we go. There is the threshold pushed on the proper turn. So, you know, if you're doing too much damage on turn 4, just dial it down a little bit. But the turn chart will show you the most damage you could deal. But, you know, so if you're following the turn chart, in case your gear is not quite as good. Anyway, so turn 6, we are now going to SLB our Abigail. We are not going to SLB Ayaka. We're going to use her cooldowns again. Now we're going to use Emboldening Song on Ayaka for the Demon Killer, and Holiday Song to Ice Amp herself. Melissa on this turn is going to do Parasol again. We're going to Human Killer on Lilith. And we're going to use the Abyssal Blessing for that big Amplify again. We're going to just triple bolting with our Cleome this turn. Olive will get ready for bursting next turn. We'll this, that, Summer, and Cannon. And then we will just Corruption for the Amp. And then double Betrayal with you. So we can go ahead and start using the attack and magic, because now we just want to kill the boss. The fight is already won. All the scores are completed. So the only thing left at this point is to just kill the boss. So now do as much damage as you possibly can. So there we go. Okay. So turn 7. We're going to do some bursting again. So first of all, we're going to use Ayaka. She's not going to burst quite yet. We're going to just use her SLB to get ready for later. We're going to use Abigail to cover and do the breaks. Turn 7. Nope, I lied to you. We're not doing that. We are doing Contingency Plan on this turn. We're going to need that for later. And then both of the breaks. Melissa is going to do Curse Control. We're going to do Human Killer on Olive. And we're going to do Minutes of Might for the LB damage buff again. We can SLBU, and we're going to do the Shifted LB of Cleome. Wait just a minute. So we're going to go ahead and Resounding Will. Let's go ahead and use a defense buff as well to get a little bit more damage out of Lilith. Go ahead and support chain this up. Or deal our damage, I should say. And there we go. A little bit of chunk of damage. Not a ton, but we're going to be doing a bunch of damage in this turn, in this phase. So there's the Imbue. Because we did turn 5, the All-Consuming Darkness, it is still active on that turn. So we're good. Alright, now we're going to use Melissa. And this is why Melissa is such a big deal for this fight. She does everything. Okay, so Melissa is now going to... Let's go ahead and use the attack and magic buff first. But Melissa is going to now do seconds of support on Lilith for the big modifier buff. We're going to Human Killer on Lilith, and we're going to just do a shared immunity again. That's going to give Lilith her LB again, and now we can use Abigail to, Abigail can Extreme Nova to match up with Lilith. Olive is going to do Double Break, Giant, and Dual Summer. Cleome will Triple Bolting, and Ayaka will Quad Bolting. Now, Ayaka is going to miss a little bit of the change here because no one's Quad Bolting with her, but that's okay. So we're going to click Olive first and wait just a moment. 1, 2, then go ahead and chain the rest. And there we go. So we're chaining the Lilith LB with Abigail, and then Olive capped, and then we had some damage with Ayaka, etc. Turn 8 is like a nothing turn, no big deal. Okay, so turn 9. Now we're going to use Melissa to finally use her SLB on herself. That's going to give her the Minutes to Might later. Abigail can SLB as well. Now you might be noticing Abigail is very, very low in health. Actually when you do the SLB we can heal anyway. Yeah, we're fine because Abigail has a huge barrier no matter what. So this turn, we're going to go ahead and do the attack and magic buff, but don't use the defense and spirit buff on this turn. We're going to save that for next turn. Ayaka can just do Quad Carol of Frosty Snow again. We're going to, again, just use the Bolting Strike of Cleome because we need to wait for her SLB because no one's chaining with her this turn. We can do this, Cap and Magnus for next turn with you. And Lilith on this turn can just triple Betrayal. If your tank, you're nervous about your tank, you can start off with like a Rapture, and we'll do that just to be safe. That'll give you a little bit more healing for your tank. Anyway, go ahead and chain this up. Again, just a little bit of damage. The real damage is going to be coming next turn. Although we're almost killing the boss at this point anyway. Okay. Some attacks here, and this turn can be painful on your tank. It depends on your tank. If you're not using Abigail, you're using like Chow or something, that could be a very painful turn. But, you know, we had lots of buffs, so we're good to go. Anyway, now it's time to finish off the boss. So we're going to use Melissa real quick before we do anything. Let's go ahead and Minutes of Might again for the LB buff. Let's Human Killer on Lilith, who is the biggest damage here. And then, doesn't really matter, Parasol Shield, Shared Immunity, doesn't matter. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and SLB these. We can now do the LB of Cleome, and Ayaka can quad Carol Snow, and then we can use the Vision card to chain with Abigail. We can use the attack. I mean, we're going to overkill a lot anyway, but, you know, we'll go all in. Use all the buffs, chain it up, and there is the boss. So, rank 1 team without using DFina. Although, yeah, so the list of viable units for this Clash of Wills is pretty small. Because it's so restrictive. So, like, you know, for people like, you know, what if I don't have Melissa? It's real tricky. It's real tricky. But there is a perfect score. Got everything done. Here is the breakdown. So Lilith, as I mentioned, is just a really big deal. Lilith does a ton of damage on this Clash of Wills. Ayaka, pretty good, pretty decent damage here. Olive is okay, and then Cleome. Mine's only EX2, which is a pretty big penalty for her. Also, Cleome's rotation doesn't really have a good partner here, so she suffers a little bit. You know, I'm not intentionally making Cleome worse here. It's just that because her rotation is, you know, bolting extreme, bolting extreme, bolting extreme, and no one else is doing that rotation here. We're doing a rotation of bolting, bolting extreme, bolting, bolting extreme. So Cleome's getting less of her LBs per turn. But there's nothing I can really do about that because, like I said, no one properly matches her in the party. But anyway, there was the team. It did work out. Got a rank 1. I'll show you the team's gear. And as far as, you know, swaps and all that, Melissa is just a huge, big deal. I don't know what could viably replace her without doing a complete team restructure. Abigail is great here, but technically not required. You could use a different tank. Ayaka and Cleome were just DPS. They were the Demon Killer, though. So Ayaka did the Demon Killer in Phase 2, and then Cleome did the Demon Killer in Phase 1. So between the two of them, both of them are both, you know, dumb. That can only do a Demon Killer for 5 turns out of the entire fight. But by using both of them, we overlapped their Demon Killers to where it covered the entirety of the fight. And then Lilith and Olive are both just wonderful here. They're really good. Because the reason they're so good is Lilith and Olive, their rotations match up perfectly because if they're both EX3. Because every third turn, they Extreme Nova together, and then Lilith can tag chain for Olive to cap on the other turns. It's a really wonderful combo, other than the fact that, you know, Lilith cannot get the 90 break off of Olive. Anyway, I'll show you the team's gear. So we're dual wielding a good morale card with Melissa, Treasured Ring, and I gave Melissa Passive Provoke. It turns out that Passive Provoke on a different unit than your tank will help out on turn 2. So, you know, there you go. It helps a little bit. It's not required if you can't do this. I tanked it just fine without that, but it makes it a little safer, and I'm doing this to show for players that don't quite have as good of an Abigail, then have someone else provoke. That way you get cover mitigation on the execution order attack. And then there you go. Abigail is geared a little bit strange here. It turns out if Melissa's on the party, you can ignore resistances. You don't need any resist whatsoever because the only turn the boss ever does elemental damage are the physical damage turns. And every single physical damage turn we absorb thanks to Melissa. So resistance is completely irrelevant on this fight if Melissa is on the party. So we gave her an Extreme Nova, not Extreme Nova, a Vision card chaining thing, whatever it's called. so she can chain with Ayaka, and then we gave her Extreme Nova to chain with Lilith on turn 8, so Lilith can get an extra LB. Other than that, like just, bulk, whatever. Ayaka is, damage versus human and demon. There it is. I think she's capped on everything. I gave her a morale card because she gears for this very easily. Magical, demon, and human are both maxed out. There you go, 12,000 magic. Lilith, same build as before. Actually, no, she's actually slightly different. She's not passive provoking, and we went even more all in for damage. So now, compared to my previous run, Lilith now has chain speed as well as Esper stats. So just a little bit more damage. 10,700 defense. And if you want more damage, you could actually level 130 her for even more damage. But I don't really need that. But if you do need it, bring her to level 130. Olive, gear slightly shifted from my previous runs. Now we're using the rain card, but yeah, there you go, and she's maxed on everything. And then Lunar Festival Cleome, again, mine's only EX2, but she is capped on everything. I gave her max damage, chain cap with the Magisters, and I gave her this card for Demon Killer. I don't think she actually needs Demon Killer, but she's maxed everything anyway, so maxed human, maxed demon, and then shift form, same thing. And there it is. Turn chart will be in the comments. The only thing to watch out for is turn 4. You want to deal 2.5, but don't over push, because if you push the threshold on turn 4, it's going to really mess up the turn actions based on the way I've planned out the clear. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but you'll have to just readjust the turn chart on your own and adjust for the boss's AI change if you cross on turn 4. So I recommend you just not push threshold on turn 4, push it on turn 5 instead. It makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. Anyway, there it is. See you next time.